Hey, welcome. I'm Kath Nolan, once high-performing perfectionist good girl turned goddess of balance, kicking even bigger goals. This is the podcast where we make balance doable for busy, overstretched working women, embracing your voice, honoring your feminine power, and protecting your energy. This allows you to truly step into greatness for the sake of all you hold dear. This is balance, and I am so glad you are here claiming balance for yourself. Today's episode is Brenda Denbesten is the guest today. I've wanted her on the show for a little while now. She's a powerhouse in engineering, in mining, and in manufacturing. But what really sets her apart is how she leads. Brenda is a sought-after speaker, an award-winning D&I advocate, a former BHP leader, and the brains behind the popular YouTube series Chronicles of a Female Engineer. But she's also deeply grounded, funny, and completely unafraid to challenge the tired old stories about what leadership in STEM looks like. In this chat, we go beyond the usual women in STEM struggle narrative, and instead we celebrate what happens when women like Brenda back themselves, build cultures of inclusion, and stay in the game for long enough to change the game. You ready? Let's dive in. Brenda, tell me about STEM. So what was it that initially drew you into STEM?
Oh, that's a really good question. So I had finished my year 12 and I had done biology, chemistry, and maths. And so I thought, oh my gosh, what am I going to do with this? I wasn't wanting to be a doctor. We already had two of those in the family. I wasn't really keen to be like my mom, who was a businesswoman. So someone in my class said, I'm going to be a chemical engineer. I said, oh, what's that? And she said, well, chemical engineers pretty much make products and they run factories. So, and I thought to myself, ooh, L'Oreal, because it's worth it. Like I literally thought about the ad and I was like, that's fantastic. I'm going to make cosmetics, lipstick, makeup, make women feel beautiful. And off I went. Now, it wasn't obviously, I have not worked with L'Oreal up until this day, which is sad to say. I got in and then third year realized that there was no cosmetic companies, there was no pharmaceuticals offering any internships. There was mining, there was water, there was food. And I come from a small mining town in Zimbabwe, and so I decided, let it be, let's do this. So I have been in mining and manufacturing and construction industries since then.
Fantastic. So I think we should just get that snippet of this podcast and just make sure that gets some really good airplay and see what we can do about, getting some. Because that's a great story for women in STEM. I think that L'Oreal should be jumping on that straight away and seeing what they can do with you in whatever capacity. So at what stage did you realise that the DI piece was something that you had to speak up about?
Look, Kath, so for the longest of time, I have been the only one in the room, the only black female engineer. I've worked in male-dominated spaces for the last 18 years. And at first, I didn't really recognize it as a problem. Like I just thought, oh, well, this is what it is. And then I started to see, the small jabs that would happen or the profiling, the stereotype, like, oh, you wouldn't want to do that because you're a girl, or you don't know how to do this because, it's too rough and too hard for you. Like I've done FIFO, I've worked in the remote industries. But I said, no, I want this to be something that I can push past. I don't want my barriers to be the ceiling, right? And so what did that look like for me? Well, my boss had asked me, what do you want to be in the next 5 years? So I thought, oh, I don't know the answer to that. Let me look around. So I went out and sort of looked at who was the women in leadership at the time, and there was no female in an engineering senior leadership role. There wasn't no female in a general manager capacity that I wanted to be. And I was like, does this mean I can't be one? Because you know what they say, you can't be what you can't see.
Yeah.
I didn't want that to be my story. So I would go out to external women in leadership conferences, go and see other women what are they doing, right? And listen to their stories, listen to how they championed themselves, listen to how they advocated, how they communicated with their bosses about what they wanted, looked up and said yes to development opportunities. And that's when I said, okay, wow, there's a missing piece here for people who are maybe a minority, maybe come from cultures where it's not common to speak up and to challenge hierarchy. So a lot of things that impact us in an African space, as also and also in the Asian community. This is quite common too. So I felt I needed to speak up. I felt I needed to step up and help others to stand out and embrace everything that they are, rather than try to dim it down and push it away.
Yeah. So, Brenda, what do you think was the turning point? Like, without, I think that when someone hears you speak about noticing that, then they're more likely to hear those moments themselves in their own experience. But you hadn't heard that at that point because there was no one else saying, hey, this is wrong. So, what was the turning point that made you start to question whether the way you were being spoken to or about was not the same as the way others are people being spoken to?
Yes, I think for myself, it was sort of seeing the plateau. So, I guess I'm quite driven and ambitious, and I wanted to be something and be someone. And so, in my first couple of roles, like I had been in there for some years, like it was 5 years, and I kind of looked back and I thought, I've still got the same pay, I've still got the same job title, I've still got the same almost everything. And I looked around me and I thought, oh my gosh, these people aren't moving, they're not going anywhere. I felt capped in that sort of sense. And then I moved into a new role and I looked at what I'd been doing, and I'd been doing what school teaches us to do, which is just show up, do the hard work. People will see you, people will notice you. So I guess my sort of turning point was probably after 7 years, which feels like a long time. 7 years into my career, I sort of decided, oh my gosh, I'm looking around me, and people that I started with, I guess the men that I started with, had already excelled and done lots of things, and there I was still in a similar sort of role. And I thought, wow, there is something I'm missing or something that I'm not unlocking here. Yeah. What is it? And so this is when I started looking for a mentor. This is when I started saying what I wanted and saying, hey, I want this opportunity, but I don't know what I should be doing. Like, where is that gap? I had to be courageous. It is hard, like leading a team of older men and telling them what to do. It's like, oh, will people actually listen to me? Will they respect me? Do they think I am an engineer and a leader, or they just think, who is this chick who's coming here to tell us what to do when we've been around for a long time? So certainly there was barriers and challenges, but I think they were kind of speckled in it. And I decided, and I put maybe I put the stake in the ground when I decided that I want to be more. I don't want what I see to be my reality. The lack of leadership, the lack of women progressing in their careers. I don't want that for myself.
Yeah.
That was probably about 7 years in.
Yeah, okay. Brenda, I think that for someone who hasn't trod the same path, whether it be because of their own demographics or because of the environment that they're in, is not as closed as environments you've been in. So can you walk me through, is there a particular moment where you felt like your identity as a woman of colour in STEM really clashed with the system and how you handled it?
So I always try to reframe some of these incidents in my own mind, because I like to think that people aren't intentionally being ignorant, I guess, is a way. We speak about unconscious bias, and we speak about, people just know what they know. So a lot of things that occurred in my career, I kind of just brushed off, so there'll be times when people say, oh, so how come your English is so good? Or, wow, where did you learn how to do all this? And how come you are an engineer? And oh, it must be nice that your husband has, done all these things on your behalf, in assumption that I am not, either of equal standing and in fact, perhaps a breadwinner, in that sense. So there was multiple occasions, Kath, and I don't know which one I can use as the one that really drove the stake in. It was quite regular. And so in my view, what I responded to that with was to sort of reframe. Perhaps on occasion I would educate and sort of say, look, it can be quite hurtful for you to assume these things. Like, I actually went to an English speaking school, and, people do speak English in Zimbabwe, and, or have been in Australia for a long time. And, so there is a portion of education, and sometimes I'll just not, respond in a way that is going to aggravate me, because it's almost like poison. If you're the one drinking the poison and hoping that the other people experience it, nothing changes, right? Except I die inside. So I felt like a part of the solution was for me to educate. A part of the solution is for me to not take it to heart, But then a part of the solution is to educate and equip others for how to stand up in those scenarios too, how to clap back, or if someone pushes your idea away and then a male raises it a few seconds later, how can you manage that? So an accumulation of issues.
Tell me that one. How do you do that one? So just that one micro moment when
So
someone,
yeah,
when you raise a brilliant idea and somebody else ignores and then claims it, what's your advice?
so my advice is to take it right back in that moment. So let's say you've said something like, oh, I think a good idea for us is to engage these guys to do this assessment for us. And like, people just shout over you and go away. And then, 7 minutes later, John or James says, yeah, it would be great for us to get an assessment to look at this. And then I recommend piping in at that moment and sort of saying, thank you, James. This is exactly the same idea I raised a short while. I'd love to continue on that further and let you know my insights. And then you drop the stuff that was sort of your intention to provide, because sometimes it is about recapturing that space. And people often feel slighted in the moment and shocked and taken aback, and then walk away and then I wish I could have said something. So that's an easy little micro shift that I have used in a meeting before. I claimed back and said, thank you, James, this is exactly what I was trying to share before. I'd like to share some further thoughts, and then just proceed from there.
I love the immediacy of that, and I love that you start with a thank you. It's such a powerful way. It's such a powerful way to start that conversation. I know so many people start the conversation with, I'm sorry, but I think that what just happened wasn't really right. And it's the apologetic start to that is so damaging, and that's not at all what you did. I just love it. I just love it. Brenda, how do you keep your cup full though? Because not only are you fighting the good fight for your own career, but you're also, you do a lot of work you're such a strong voice in this space. How do you stay fueled for the advocacy work without burning out?
So choosing your battles is an important one, Catherine. So when you look at people who are curious and open to learn, your energy and your education or your insights are well received, right? So it's almost like when you're planting seeds on arid soil, or dry ground or rocky ground, the seeds are not going to really flourish. So it's almost like picking your ground, seeing what type of space are you in? Are you in an open space? Are you in a curious space? Are people actually willing to learn and understand? Or are they kind of just like, not this woke business anymore, right? So you kind of first of all assess where is my message going to be well received and proceed with that insight. Secondly, it's also doing things that fill my own cup, right? So self-care is a key message, So if I'm not feeling really full in myself, like I'm not really in a space where I want to be educating and taking on other people's questions or other people's weight. It's almost like baggage, right? And I saw something this morning which spoke about that post that I wrote last week about DEI and the environment, the uncertainty that's currently in this space. And someone likened it to like the lack of psychological safety to almost like a lack of oxygen. And I liked that analogy because it almost to me represents the mental fatigue and exhaustion that can come in this space where you're constantly educating, or you're constantly having people come and maybe project some of their concerns or issues, what they think is derogatory behavior, etc. And so if you're not feeling that safety, it can feel choking, like a lack of oxygen. You can feel like you're not enough. So part of that is definitely ensuring you're full in yourself, ensuring you're in spaces that celebrate this message rather than those that like stamp it down, and continue the good fight. Even though you may see a lot of people that do not like it, there's people that are appreciative of learning something new. There's people that are, wow, I never thought of it like that. Thank you so much. I'm now gonna, be considerate. Or, wow, I've got daughters and I have never had to worry about this before, but now I can see the impact, right? So those sort of key messages you hear from people make you feel like you're fighting a good fight, and to live another day and continue doing this work.
Yeah. I think that there are so many things I want to ask you from what you've just said, Brenda. The daughters one is one of the ones that for me, it's almost like that's the sad, slow step into diversity. You know, when someone says, "Oh, I'm inclusive. I've got daughters. Of course, I'm inclusive." No, what you are is patronising. It's not necessarily actually being inclusive at all. It's about still looking after your own flock, and not actually about diversifying your inputs at all. Um, I want to ask you about. I feel as though. So you and I started chatting last week about the post that you put up and the fact that diversity and inclusion has made some great gains. The science behind, the data, the research behind the productivity gains with diversity and inclusion policies, it's undeniable. And yet there's been a really global push, very public global push recently through Trump and then the Trump administration and then the corporates and businesses that have followed in line with that. And it's caused a bit of a backlash across the globe, and you're finding that in the rooms that you're in now. Walk me through that. What are you seeing?
So I'm in quite a few rooms, a few spaces, Kath. So I'm an advocate for women in STEM specifically, but across all male-dominated spaces, right? So I've worked across the industry and I know the challenges that women face. And as part of my advocacy, I'm also part of an intersectional advisory group. So we meet with people who represent maybe mature age candidates, early career candidates, people with physical and invisible diverse disabilities, people who are from LGBTIQ plus communities, women of colour, right? So First Nations representatives. And so we sort of looked at this, and I guess it's still unfolding. No one really knows where it's going to land as yet, right? It's still quite fresh. I think it was only a month or two ago that, the Trump administration did bring this in. But we are seeing recruiters dissuading people from putting this on your resume. They're sort of seeing it as an unnecessary extra, a distraction almost to include, people when companies are restructuring, they're seeing that if they are part of initiatives that are championing DEI, they are on the chopping block. Like, is it a coincidence or is it actually, an aligned agenda to sort of restructure and move that away and to be seen to just be doing that under the HR, pillar or banner? And we're also seeing people who have had these disabilities or affiliations in different intersectionalities not wanting to sort of put their hand up anymore. And I mean, I look back at 2020, people were really keen and people were quite open about, yes, definitely, please disclose if you're on different type of medication, disclose whatever you may be a part of. We are welcoming you. We want you to feel like you belong. That is no longer the sentiment that we're seeing. And that's quite sad.
I agree with you. I think it's way more than sad, though. I actually find it really concerning because for all of those who, I mean, if this is just a moment in time, if this is just a small moment in time and it goes back to what it was, all of these people who for so long have thought, I can't disclose, it's not safe, finally have started to disclose. And then all their fears are being realised because they're being told they need to cover things up in their resume, or because there's this global push away from diversity and inclusion. I find it really concerning about what it means for us long term. Yeah, this is not even if there was a news article a few days ago that said that the Supreme Court is actually overturning some of these Trump initiatives, these directives are actually they're not going to make it through because the Supreme Court is going to deny them. So that's a great thing, but I think to a large degree, a lot of the damage has already been done.
Yes, I agree. People have shown their cards. Companies have shown whether it's just a policy or whether it does truly run through their veins, through their values. Is it something that they put lip service to and they're now quite happy to remove funding to support, or is it something that they live and breathe and are unwilling to move? We've seen companies across on sort of both sides of the fence. Maybe some have yet to show their cards fully and haven't yet had to demonstrate that. Things are coming up soon in the in terms of end of year reports and focus areas for 2026, that next financial year. So it's an interesting time, Kath. People are wondering, where do I stand? People are wondering, who do I align with? People are wondering, is it safe for me to be me?
Yeah.
And that is a human need. That is a human need to feel safe, to feel like you belong, to feel like you're one of
course.
the tribe, the team, right? So it is a question mark that's hanging over a lot of people as they go to work. So certainly a timely affair. And the sad thing is there's no answers really. Like it's almost just this cloud of fog, right? And you're unsure when it's going to clear, what can be done about it, what is coming.
Yeah,
It's a bit of uncertainty.
Yeah, for sure. And then on the flip side, last night, did you see that flight? The
No?
historic space flight? Oh my goodness. So last night, Blue Origin's New Shepard rocket launched mission NS-31. It was an all-female space flight, the first since 1963. And the one in 1963 was only one woman in the flight. So this one was 6 women. It was Katy Perry, Gail King. There was there was like a Nobel Prize nominee, there was a journalist, there was a book writer, a film producer. These 6 brilliant women doing the first all-female space flight. And I happened to stumble across it. There wasn't enough, to my opinion, there wasn't enough noise about this thing. This is the sort of thing we should all know about a whole lot more before it happens. I happened to stumble across it and see like, oh, they're walking, like they're in the car on their way to the shuttle launch, and these gorgeous women in these like tiny, skimpy, like really, they looked more like race car drivers than spacesuits. Apparently they tried to do this a few years back, but there weren't enough spacesuits that were made for women's bodies for them to be able to have women in the space flights. So anyway, so these women are looking fabulous and stunning, and yeah, the flight lasted for 11 minutes. So it was a very short flight. It was 11 minutes. You could see the whole thing. You didn't have to wait too long. You said the whole thing with, Gail King walking up to the flight looking terrified. They ring the bell going on, and then they come off, and Gail King and Katy Perry both kissed the ground as they got off. And it was a fabulous, fabulous, fabulous display. And just a gorgeous message. I think that, we've talked before about our involvement with our mutual involvement with Osmompreneur and how fabulous they are at raising the concerns, raising the pain in a really uplifting way. And I think that this flight, the timing of this flight, has just done that so superbly.
I think you're right there, Kath. Like to celebrate something like this is a once in a lifetime feat to see. Like, and I see why you're saying we should be hearing this being shouted at from the rooftops, right? We should be celebrating this much, much more. And when you mentioned about the suits, like that there was no space suits designed for women, like this is one of the reasons why I'm also passionate about engaging more women in this space, because a lot of the solutions come out of engineering, like a lot of the solutions to life, right? The products that we experience, the technology that we enjoy, anything is coming out of this sort of engineering, technology, manufacturing space, right? So we need women's voices, we need women's perceptions, we need women to speak into the future world we're creating, right? And so, we see a lot of information about, but you put something in AI and you ask it to show you a typical something, and they bring photos of men, right, in certain careers, or, it's just like we need to have the consideration for women. We need to show that you are a part of this world. We want your insights, we want your perspectives. Yeah. So yes, one of the ladies I follow on LinkedIn, she created PPE, which is the high visibility pants and shirts for women, like, and through the seasons that a woman will experience while she's working. So pregnancy, because back in my day, if you were pregnant, you just get a man's XXL, shirt. So, the arms are like hanging or whatever. But now she's, created some lovely pants that, can be extended, and, the t-shirts that have got a bit of extras, just like a zip-in insert, and pants that you can take off an extra layer if you're a shorty, so these are things that women experience and are exposed to, but don't have a safe place to go and ask questions. And you're not going to want to go to your bosses and say, oh, excuse me, my workwear doesn't fit. Like, it takes a lot for women to have to want things to be created around them. So initiatives like these are so important and so key to helping more women feel like they belong and that they are welcome.
So yeah. I used to recruit for one of the PPE organisations, one of these businesses that used to produce this equipment. And I remember asking them about, we were talking about recruiting their CFO, I was recruiting their CFO, and I was talking to them about, so why is it only one range? Why have you only got one range? Why are there not a women's section in your catalogue? And they had said, well, there's just not enough need. It's like, oh my goodness. Anyway, that floored me. That was a long time ago. But I'm really curious about, no, I've forgotten my question. How did I lose my question in the middle of that? What did I want to ask you? There was something that was really poignant.
I mean, it's interesting, Kath, about like the fact that they said there's just no women, there's not enough of a need. Like this is the whole scenario around, build it and then they will come, right? Because I see,
Exactly.
in different workplaces and, construction is an area which sees quite a lot of these issues still, but just not having toilets that are close
No.
enough to the coal face. If I worked in major hazard facilities, sometimes there'd be like chemicals that can spray on you, and so you have to rush to like a safety shower and douse yourself in water so that you save your skin and you don't get burned.
Yeah.
Now you need to derobe and take all these things that have been chemically impacted off. But if there's no bathroom like close for you to, or change room for you to quickly run to and be changed again, like that's a barrier. That's something that's going to prevent women from thinking, oh, this is a place for me. Like I'd rather be stationed over there, please, in the admin building or somewhere where I'm not
Yeah.
exposed and have to have that impact. So these
Yeah.
small things that may appear small, or oh, we don't have a need for that here, like they have to be in place. Like you're not going to hire a woman and then put in a 9-month plan for a demountable or a building with showers to be installed. Like it has to come first, and you have to show that you're willing and you're serious about hiring women and creating a space where they can thrive.
Yeah, for sure. Brenda, I'm really conscious. So, for me, these things, balance is really important in all aspects of leadership for me. And one of them is this space of diversity and inclusion. It's a space that I've worked in for a long time, and I'm always really conscious of this, of just holding the balance between we need to educate about what is, and we also need to hold optimism and joy for what is. So when we started this conversation, I'm so glad, I'm so grateful for you to share the darker spots in this journey, because so many people won't be familiar with those, right? So I think that sharing that is really important. But I also really want to make sure that what we close on is your joy for what it is that you do. You started with such a beautiful story about, chemical engineering. Oh my God, I can work for L'Oreal. I can create makeup and these things that are really resonant for a 20-year-old. What have you loved about your career? What has STEM done for you? What have you loved about your career?
Kath, the real thing that I love, and maybe it was serendipitous or something. What's the word? I can't think of the word, but the fact that I ended up in mining. So mining is where you can turn hard rock and take it through a series of challenging processes, heat, pressure, chemicals, and then out at the far end comes a bar of gold. I feel like the work that I help to do in this space really helps people to uncover their gold that's within them, right? So helping them to step up, to speak out, to stand out in their industry, to use their brains, to use their insights, to use their unique background and lived experience, maybe some that they thought was a problem or they thought was something to hide or, something that was not okay, but reshaping that mindset, helping them to see, actually, you've got amazing talent here. You can use it. That is one of the main reasons I am an advocate in this space, because I know the excitement that the industry brings. I know the financial freedom that can come out through having a role in one of these industries. The strides we've made now in flexibility, so people can take paternal and maternal leave and raise families and do both things, because it's not about one or the other. You have to choose your career or choose a family. No. When done right, when you can have someone to show you the way that they navigated through too, it can make all the difference. And that is the joy for me. That's the internal bubble. That's the that's the eternal fountain, I guess you'd call it, Kath, that causes me to wake up every day and still do what I do and share and educate and assist in the only way that I know how.
What a gift for our world that you are willing to be the beacon that you are. How fabulous. How fabulous. And like, Oh my goodness! Of course you are. You know the roles that you juggle, the things that you balance, the speaker profile as well as the advocacy, as well as doing the work, as well as I just absolutely adore having you in my world. Brenda, thank you so much for sharing with us.
I appreciate it. I've loved this conversation, Kath, and I welcome any connections from anyone who's listened to this. Feel free to jump onto LinkedIn, say hello, comment on a post, share your thoughts, let us know what you're seeing in your spaces as well, because I'm sure it's not all doom and gloom. The fog will lift and we'll see a brighter day again.
For sure. The conversations are so important. Let's keep them going. You know, I believe that women do help other women. I hope that this episode has empowered you to question your willingness to go last. I hope that you will embrace balance, and I'm also hoping that you will help me to help other women to do the same. So how can you help? Show your support for the work. Subscribe and review the podcast here where you're listening. Follow the Goddess of Balance on Instagram to catch some cheeky behind the scenes and extras. Connect with me on LinkedIn and share the posts with your network. That would be sensational. If you have enjoyed this program, this episode, you will no doubt love my group coaching program. You got to find all the links to these in the little written blurb for this episode. Thank you, my friend, for normalizing balance with me. We are raising performance and reputations, wellness and equality. Together, we're creating positive change for working women, starting with you. Sincerely, I thank you for being part of the movement.